Welcome back to Wyoming SportsLine on a Tuesday. I'm Jerrad Anderson. Thanks for being here. Tonight is our special wrestling recap show as we look back at a tremendous year for the Wyoming Cowboys. Pokes finished the year ranked 16th in the nation, and we're lucky enough to be joined by head coach of the Wyoming Cowboys, Mark Branch. Now, Mark, now that the NCAA championships in St. Louis are over, have you had kind of a chance to digest this season and kind of summarize it for us if you can?
Well, we had a lot of experience on this team, and I thought it showed throughout the year. These guys, looking back at them, they weren't a highly touted group coming in. They weren't a lot of big-name recruits by any means, and they all developed and not only developed as very good wrestlers, but as great leaders and great men in our program. And for them to, endure 5 years of going through, the trials and tribulations of what kids in our program experience is pretty impressive. And to give you an idea on that, we had 7 seniors this year. Last year we had 1. So, it's not normal for a class to really stick together and make it as a group. So those guys have been through a lot together, and it showed, I think, in our performance. We were a mature team, and we had a very good season, and especially a dual season. We had a very good dual season. And the thing you learn at the NCAA tournament is it's an individual tournament. It doesn't really reflect the strength of your team as a whole, which is unfortunate because our team, throughout the year, I think, showed how good they were as a dual team.
You did just get back from St. Louis. What was the atmosphere in that building like, and were you proud of what your team was able to accomplish?
Yeah, it was obviously it's always a great atmosphere. I think this year they did break another attendance record. So to be in that environment, it's not normal for wrestling, and it's something pretty special. Every session was aired live on ESPN, and it was an electric atmosphere, and there were a lot of critics to how the seating went, but what it probably provided was a pretty exciting atmosphere and a pretty exciting tournament, and the fact that we had a ton of upsets. And we had a lot of crazy things happening throughout the tournament, which is probably pretty exciting for the fans. It gives the coaches a little bit of a probably a heartache, but it was a great tournament. The guys really, I thought, wrestled their best. They thought, we knew going into the tournament our draws were about as bad as you can get, and you're always going to get bad draws, but typically when you're taking 6, 7, 8 guys, you're going to have some guys that get some pretty darn good draws too. So it kind of evens out. And we didn't get any favors by any means. And so we knew we were going to have to do something extraordinary and special. And then once the tournament got started, our kids were wrestling well and they competed well. We came up short of making some pretty huge upsets, but we were in the match right to the end, and it seems like at every weight we were right there at the end. But it just, even as the tournament went, things just continued to not really fall in our favor, I guess you should say. But we don't really coach that, we don't talk about needing that. We talk about overcoming those challenges, and it was tough, and unfortunately we didn't walk away with any All-Americans, but our guys did wrestle extremely well.
One of the things I think that popped out to us was Shane Woods. He got a couple of nice consolation wins, plus he picks up his 100th win as a Cowboy. What has Shane meant to your program?
Yeah, Shane had just a fantastic season. Finishes the year 35-5, and so going into the tournament with only 3 losses, he set himself up pretty well. Has wrestled well all year, and Shane finishes his career here, like you said, with over 100 wins. He finishes a 3-time conference champion and a 3-time NCAA qualifier, and he really had a great tournament. And he came out, won his first round match, which he was supposed to, and then his second match he hits the eventual NCAA runner-up and loses that match and drops down on consolation against a guy that's been ranked in the top 10 most of his career. And I would say on paper, Woods was an underdog against the kid from Ohio, and was actually losing the match middle of the second period and really just came alive. And, you could tell he just wanted to make something special happen. And he got out of his comfort zone, hit a big-time move, and then took control of that match, came back his next match, and dominated against an Oregon State kid that I think had a 1-point match with him this season. And then, again, for the way our luck was kind of running, the number 2 guy, the number 2 seed in the tournament gets upset and falls down and hits Shane to be an All-American. That's who Shane had to beat to be an All-American. And then that kid goes through and gets third. So he loses to the second and third place guy in the tournament. Anywhere else in the bracket, he's probably an All-American. But it just it seemed like that's the way things were rolling for us all weekend.
Talking with Mark Branch, he is the head coach at the University of Wyoming wrestling program. They finished 16th in the nation after the NCAA championships this weekend. Coach, I know everybody asks you about the in-state products, but you had a couple of kids in particular from Wyoming that really helped out this team. Can you just talk about those kids from Wyoming and what they've meant to the success of this program?
Yeah, absolutely. They've been fantastic, and they have so much, they've been easy because they have so much loyalty and love for the university already. We don't have to teach that. And that's, most of the time when you're dealing with out-of-state kids, that's a learned feeling. They have to get, in the program and learn to love the University of Wyoming, learn to love Laramie. And so these kids already have that coming in. So they're pretty easy to deal with when, it comes to that. We don't have to deal with them getting homesick typically. But not only that, they're just an extremely hard-working group, and Tyler Cox obviously leaves here as being an All-American, a couple years ago, and again, he just, the last 2 years, he's just had brutal draws, and there's guys through the tournament that are placing that he's beaten, but they ended up in a little different spot in the bracket, and that's just the way that it rolls, and so he doesn't have anything to hang his head about. And Andy McCauley, went up 2 weights this year and had an outstanding season for us. And he wrestles such a physical, tough style, and it's not, pretty technique, but he's a brawler. And I tell you what, that brings something to the program. That's something the young kids can learn from. But he hits the number 3 guy, his second match, and then drops down in his first match in consolation is the number 4 guy who gets upset. And so, he loses to the 3 and 4 guy, and it's unfortunate. But he went there toe-to-toe with both those guys and gave him, took him to the very end. So I was proud of his effort. He's just a kid that has no quit in him. And then, we have another senior from Wyoming that didn't make our starting lineup that's probably had as much impact as anybody has on our program, and that's Leland Pfeiffer. He's just been one of the best kids I've ever coached. From his attitude to his work ethic to his loyalty, there's just hardly anybody like him out there.
Coach, this team a top 25 program all season long. What can you do now moving forward to assure this program stays one of the best in the nation? And I know this is always kind of difficult, especially right after this season ends, but what should we keep an eye out for? What's exciting about next year?
My feelings have never changed after any season, and as soon as that last day of the NCAA tournament's over, I start thinking about how do we get better, and that's putting work in. That means getting back on the mat. The young guys coming back need to get focused and motivated and understand, where we fell short and how we can make up that gap. And so the work starts now. We're trying to do things on a bigger scale of it. We've made some massive improvements to our facility. Like I mentioned, we're going to join the Big 12. So those things are things that are going to help us in the recruiting world. So we're thinking, we need to recruit bigger, we need to recruit better, we need to improve more, we need to have more dedication, and that's going to be my charge to our team coming back, is that they have to put the time in, because this is a year-round sport, and the best guys are training year-round. There's no off-season. So we need to get back at it and get back in the room. We have quite a few kids that are going to be wrestling freestyle this spring. And we got some tournaments coming right up, so we got to get back in there and start training and get prepared for that. We had a couple of red shirts that had really good seasons. P.T. Garcia at 133 pounds had an outstanding red shirt season. Branson Ashworth at 149 pounds had a really good season, so I'm looking forward to those guys coming in. And we got some holes to fill. With 7 seniors, we have some shoes to fill. But we want to think beyond just filling those shoes, and that's no disrespect to those guys, but we want to take what they did and improve on it and do better. So it doesn't happen. It's not going to fall into your lap. Our guys need to understand they have to earn it, and if they want to be that guy, and that's the great thing about every session being shown on ESPN is, our entire team sat at home probably. There were several of them that went and actually watched it live, but I would guess the rest of them sat at home and watched it, and they saw, the excitement of success, the gratification of success, and the sacrifice it took to get there. So those are the things they need to keep in mind as we get motivated to train for next year.
He's head coach of the Wyoming Cowboy wrestling team, Mark Branch. For the full interview, you can check out this station's website. We'll wrap up Wyoming SportsLine with a quick check of regional and national sports.